Right, so the idea here is, first is we're going to create, I know I'm opening Word, but this is where we're going to create our analysis and design document. So we're going to create an application that calculates an employee's net pay, right? Employee's net pay. So these are things that will be given, right? You are to enter the employee's gross pay, yeah, right? So let me see here, input. Gross pay, right? So that's the input. And the idea here is you're gonna figure out the deductions, right? Figure out deductions. And what are the deductions?
Taxes.
Very good. The deductions,
Federal
tax, Medicare, right?
IRA.
We're just gonna stick with this three right here, right? So okay. So federal tax. Let's just think hypothetically that there's a flat tax. No such thing, obviously. But at one point there was a proposal. Forbes was proposing a flat tax. Actually, if you look at his idea, it's really not bad. If you look at it real close, but it didn't win, obviously. But I actually thought that it wasn't a bad idea. Federal tax. Let's say there's a 10% flat rate for everybody. Social Security, let's make it 5%. Even though it's not. Again, these are just hypotheticals, right? So this is not the actual rates. So Medicare is, let's say, 3%. Another thing is, another input here is years of service. Because I want to be able to do some logical stuff in our... You guys did some conditionals, right? On the programming one, like the if, else statement. Okay, just make sure that that's covered. So years of service. So those are the two inputs: the gross pay, years of service. So here we're gonna figure out what we call the loyalty incentive, right? I know I have to. And the logic, the condition for the conditions for loyalty incentive is if you're, I'm going to call this one YOS so that it's, say, if YOS is less than 5, okay, you get 0. If YOS is greater than 5, less than 10, less than 10, get a 100. Okay. If YOS is greater than equal to, actually less than or greater than equal to 5, greater than equal to 10, less than 20, then you get 250. Get 250. Last condition is if YOS is greater than equal to 20, then the student gets, the employee gets 500 plus for every year exceeding 20, it's 100. So if your years of service is 6, what is your loyalty incentive?
100.
It's 100, right? If your years of service is 15, you get, if your years of service is 1,
0.
if your years of service is 23,
Last 700.
what is it?
700. You said, wait, 20, how many?
23.
23.
3.
800.
800. Yes, so it's 500. And then 3 times 100, then you get 800. So the idea here is you're going to enter on the application, enter gross pay, get a number, enter years of service, get a number, and then after you hit enter there, it will show deductions, federal tax, the amount, Social Security, the amount, the Medicare, the amount, and then it will show loyalty incentive value, whatever that value is, and then it will show the net pay towards the end. Or you can show total deductions too. We can add total deductions. So the output will be, so we'll say output here, and it will be after the input, right? So this will be the input. This right here, output will be deductions, will be fed tax. Say for example that value, Social Security, let's say 75, Medicare. I'm just coming up with some numbers here. Well, let's base it off of 1,000. So 1,000, 5% is 50. 3% is, so output, enter, gross pay. Again, these are input. I know they're not output, but output on our display. Enter years of service. Let me just save this real quick. Net pay specs. Years of service. Let's say 25. And let's say 10 or 11. Deductions, federal tax. Medicare is 3%, so this will be 30, right?
Yes.
And total deductions, this will be 180. And then loyalty incentive should say what? Loyalty. So 11 years, what's it gonna be? 250. And then net pay will be 1,000 minus 180, that's 820 plus 250. That's $820 plus 250, 1,070, right? Right? So that's the idea. This is the idea for the project. So I know, don't think this is pseudocoding. All I'm doing is I'm creating a layout of what my application is going to be. That's all we're doing here. You can use a piece of paper, you can use Word, you can use PowerPoint, Photoshop, whatever software you use. So for me, just to have a clear picture of what my inputs are, what are the things that needs to be processed. In this case here, the things that needs to be processed, the calculation of the federal tax, calculation of this, calculation of Medicare, figuring out the loyalty incentive based on these conditions. So that's our process. And then the output. So if you look at it, it is very basic. When I develop software, I look at, on a big picture, I look at the input, the processes involved, and the output. Because to be able to process something, you need to have the data all in place. That's all the input. The output, most people that I work with, that's really all they care about, is the output. So even though I spent like weeks developing something, all they really care about is what shows here, right? As a developer, that's your job, is to make sure this shows and this shows correctly. Okay? Any questions about our plan here? So let me just minimize this. Oops, minimize this. Yeah, we have some type of template here. That. All right, so let's start our Dev++. And let's create a new project. And Windows console application, we're gonna call this one NetPay. And I'm gonna save it inside, where's my Dropbox app, so that I have CIS, right? New folder, projects, save. So by default, it has this namespace here called the IO stream. That's make us eligible to ask for an input and an output, right? So the fact that we're going to be we'll say enter gross pay, the console in and out. That's the reason why this is there. I don't know if that's explained to you guys. I don't have to explain it line by line, but and this is the basic main module on a C++ application. So first thing is what is going to be our input? You think? What are the inputs?
Federal tax.
Huh?
Federal tax.
Well, that's actually process data. That's after the gross pay, right? That's based on the gross pay. So what are the things that we're going to be inputting?
Gross pay.
Gross pay, very good. So gross pay and
User service.
very good. And years of service. Yeah, I need to fix my gross pay, and I'm going to call it YOS, okay? And what data type are those two, you think? We're going to make it whole number. We're not going to deal with like 2050 point and 25 cents. So we're going to make it all. So what data? Integer. So make it int, right? For now, that's all we know, right? I will have two inputs. So the next thing is, I want to define some constants that will actually will hold the different rates, the tax rate, the Social Security rate, and the Medicare rate. It's not necessary, but it's good practice. So for me, when I do programming, I want to be able to identify things as much as possible. I just don't want to put like some 0.25 or and that's going to be my tax rate. If I know that that is called tax rate, I will identify it as tax rate. So that's when I'm going to use constant. So I put const here. Say what type of say data type, float, right? And tax rate. And what did I say on the tax rate?
Federal tax is 10%.
Again, 0.1, okay. And then rate equals, how do I make this bigger? There's a way to zoom this in.
You
What about like control scrolling? Will that work or not?
Control scroll. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. So make it as big as possible there. So Social Security rate. What I have there is 5 and 3. Okay. 0.05 and med rate equals 0.03. And then we know that we're going to calculate the federal tax values, the Social Security value, and the Medicare value, right? All the deductions, right? So float what do they call this float? Tax SSN and med. Okay. So the next thing is what? Now that we have defined our input, the tax rates, Social Security rates, and Medicare rate, and then the values that will hold those deductions. I know we're still missing something there, but we're going to go back to it. So now is the next step. Now is to ask for the input, right? Is to ask for the input, like enter your gross pay. We can just define the gross pay, but let's make it an application. So console out. I just make sure I got this because I always get confused with those lines because I don't really do this. Okay, enter gross pay. CN. Then gross pay. Then now the use of service. Okay. So now that we have our inputs, what's the next step?
Make the calculations, how the variables interact with each other. Or, excuse me, not the data. You could also define the years of service parameters.
So what did you first say? What's the next step?
First, I said you could make the equation, how
Two.
gross pay, years of service interact with the tax rate.
Very good. So now we're going to define the values for the tax, right? Equals gross pay times tax rate, right? And then SSN equals times rate, then med rate equals times you don't. When I program myself, you don't really see a lot of this from me because I love my job and I don't want somebody else to take my job. So if you do job security programming, don't do this. But for the academic purposes, you have to. But now, if you have job security and you have integrity now at work and you're not going to get fired, it's good to have this. At one point, you will go back to a code that you did 2 years before, and you're looking at it and you have no clue. Sometimes you get excited about, God, I can't believe that I figured this out. I can't believe that, but I don't know what it does. So, but you have this. It really helps. So next step is calculate deductions. What's the next step?
You could define the parameters for years of service, or
Yes, very good. So let's do the years of service now. So how do we come up with the years of service? Again, this is the rule we have for year of service. Let me actually make this a little bigger here and then focus on just in that section right there. And I can just
would you define another variable, or would you would say if years of service is smaller than 5, loyalty is equal to 50, and then use the equation down, or would you just float? I don't know how to explain.
No, you're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Would you do it that way?
You can do switch. You can do if else, right? And there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
It depends on what you prefer. So we're just going to use if else. So say here if, then here we say calculate. And when you're doing your project, you don't have to put comments. It's just good practice for you. For me, it's just good practice. Calculate loyalty incentive. So I say if. So I'll say here, years of service is less than. There you go. Okay. 0. Then what do I have there? I don't have a variable for it, right? That will hold the bonus. I'm just gonna add here. I'm just gonna put INC here for incentive. So inc equals what?
0.
Oh, less than 5. Sorry about that. So what we're doing next? Else if, right?
Yes.
And why do we use else if versus just if again? Because you can make another if.
I don't know why.
because it's part of the same problem and it's not separate, so you use else if instead of if.
Part of the same problem. Okay, you're on the right track. The difference between using if and else if is if you have an else if, once the condition is met, it exits that module. So what I'm saying is if you have like if this, then do this, else if, do this, else if, do this, else if you have like 20 of those, once a condition is met, if you're halfway, it exits that if else if. It doesn't execute the next 10 if, knowing that it's already met on one of those things. That's the only time you use it. Okay? So for here, once you only have 1 years of service number, it's not like you have 2, right? So once it satisfies one of these conditions here, then it doesn't have to. Let's say if it is 3, right? It doesn't need to check this, and this again, because it knows it's already satisfied here. So else if will do that for you. It doesn't execute the next ones. But for me, back in the day, I will have like 20 of those ifs. I still get the right answer, but it's like 3 seconds longer. The application runs 3 seconds longer because it has to go through those other things there. But then you realize, oh yeah, that's right. And it doesn't have to do all these other things. Switch though, if you use switch, like you guys have used switch, like case statements. Like it's like this. I'm gonna show you. I think in the next class I'll show you what it's very similar to this. It's actually an automatic if else if. It only satisfies one condition. Here, no, you have to know this. Got to do an else if kind of thing. So if and then you say YOS, and the condition is greater than equal to 5, right? And what is the and in? Okay, 2 and YOS is less than 10. And you say INC equals what? 100. Else if YOS greater than equal to 10, what? YOS less than 20, INC equals 250. Else you can even make it an else if. Else or else if, it will do the same thing. If YOS greater than equal to 20, so equals what? Equals 500. Actually missing the 500. And how do you come up for the every year? For every year exceeding, it's 100 each.
Need another variable or not?
You can, but you don't need to.
Would it just be easier to make a separate function for that part and just call that function and run that?
Yeah, you can have a separate function, but we're not there yet on the function, so we have to somehow figure it out here. So how do you come up with the a number exceeding 20? Because this one is 20, right? This one will give you, was 40, but what is it 23? How do you come up with the 3? If it's 25, how do you come up with the 5? It's really just that. So plus what? What's that?
How much 20 minus years of service? Does that give you your number
Yeah, so it's very good. So it's years of service. Very good, Mark. So it's years of service minus 20. And you multiply this by 100. Because the math operation, the arithmetic operation in C++ is very similar to an arithmetic operation when you do it in math, right? It multiplies it first and then it adds. So these operations happen first because it's parentheses, and then it's going to add this two. It's not going to add this two right away. It will multiply this first because multiplication supersedes addition, right? So if this 23, so 23 minus 20, that's 3 times 100 plus 500. Yeah, what Mark is saying is we can create another separate function that figures this out, which, yeah, that's fine. We can do that, but we're going to do that when we're ready to the function session. All right, so now that we're figured this out, what's the next step? We have our loyalty incentive. What's the next step?
Deductions or not?
The equation.
We can put the deductions total here. So let's say total. Let's just call this one deductions, right? And I know it's not defined. Deductions equals what? Tax plus, right? And obviously, we're gonna add that under here. I'm gonna call this one net pay app. Okay. Okay. Deductions, and the next thing now is net pay, right? Net pay equals,
Gross pay minus.
very good, calculate. I'm gonna put here, I'm just gonna put a comment here. Gross pay minus deductions, right? Which is this, the sum of the tax, Social Security, and Medicare, right? Plus what? The incentive. So what we just did is we defined our inputs. We've defined our console-based input, which is a dialog. We do our calculations, including this, and now ready for the output. What do I have here? Yeah.
You define the INC as well.
Oh, the INC? You know what? I don't think we defined. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. Yeah, the INC though. Yeah, that's going. Yeah, it's going to be a whole number, right? I don't see it. Yeah, it's not gonna have a decimal because it's times 1,500. Yeah, it's not gonna have a decimal. So it's okay to make it an integer. So for now, see out. Let's do just the net pay for now. Net pay is net pay. Save this. You guys see any error? Anything weird?
I don't think so.
So let's run it first and make sure that we get the correct values here. Quick. So we don't have this yet, but we're gonna add this later. All we have is this one right now. So let's compile and run. There's an error. All right, so it's not recognizing cout cn, cout cn. Why is that? It's missing something here. So that means that the IO stream is not enough by itself. So that means I have to add this standard a fx.h. And that's one of the weird things sometimes with you have to have those.
Could we just tell it using namespace standard and what that could work?
What's that?
Can we put use namespace standard under it and actually get it marked here?
Yeah, it will do the same thing with namespace standard using namespace standard. Let's try that too. Let's add that too, just to be on the safe side. And you can do that too. So both of those should do the same thing. This TDAF. I spell it in wrong. Yeah, maybe we don't need that. I'll run.
What is that one? 28?
No, it's I have some recursive variable here. So did I call it med? Yeah, I call this one med rate as well. So let's execute. Damn, all this errors.
What does it say? There's a net pay was not declared.
No, it's I don't need this. I don't need this inside parentheses. What? Deductions. That's correct. Float. Net pay is nowhere to be found. Right? Yeah, it's nowhere to be found. So we're gonna add it here. It's about time. Code works. Here's of service. What do I have there? 11. 1099.97. What the? That's not right. All right, so something wrong with the Is my math correct?
Wait, scroll down. Did you put a? Wait, you did.
Yeah, I got it right here. 0.1, 0.05, 0.03, right? Hold on, let me try this. Fed assessment. Tax assessment. Just want to see where that number is coming from. $150, 30. What is the line feed for? Is this /n?
Yeah, slash it once, the next line.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't want.
Okay, I don't want.
Right now.
Okay,
Oh, for new line,
for new line, yeah.
yeah, slash n, or backslash.
So it's gross pay minus deductions. So that means that this one is not. What is 250, right? Oh. God. Yeah, this is really correct now. I think I typed in med rate instead of 11. All right, there you go. Yeah. 1,070, which is the right number, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's 50 plus 30.
So it's taking med rate, which was freely like defined.
Yeah, it's taking like the point zero.
percentage.
Yeah. So let me just make this.
Do you have one called med and med rate?
Yeah, no, it's the actual.
It's timesing it by that instead of taking it.
Yeah, I was using this value instead of using the calculation here. That was so here it says yeah, here it says med rate earlier. This one says med rate earlier. So let's yeah, okay. Let's make sure that I'm using the right. Okay, last one. Count. Incentive. Okay. There you go. So it's 1,000 minus 100, 900 minus 50 is 850 minus 20. That's minus 30. That's 820 plus 250. That's 1070. I know it's not organized correctly, but you guys get the idea. So let's see how fast this compiles. Compile and build. It doesn't say. Yes, that's from the beginning of the process. So, any questions, guys, about how this works? So all I want to introduce is refresh you guys is about how you define the variables, how do you ask for input, some transactions, calculations, and then output.
What exactly what exactly would you use float for? Just decimals? Decimal numbers?
Yeah, decimal numbers, float. There's double. That actually there's a decimal also data type. Then there's integer, and then you realize, and then you understand that there's long integer, short integer, different types of integer. But so for whole numbers, you usually use integers. There's also a Boolean data called bool, B-O-O-L. That's true or false kind of thing. So that's not here. We don't have that here. But does this make sense? Our first application. So that's our first app. The next app now is that we're going to create is a grading app. So for the grading app, now you guys have to put it together. So I'm going to give you the specs. So the input will be your test average, which will be 30% of your grade. And then the midterm exam, 20% of your grade. And the final exam, no, final project, sorry, which is 40% of your grade. And assignments, which is 10% of your grade. So that's the input, and then the output numeric final grade and the letter grade equivalent. So and we're going to be using grade determination here. If your num final grade is from 91 to 100, you get an A. Then if it is 81 to 90, you get a B. 71 to 80, You get a C, 621,270. You get a D, and 60 and below you get the ultimate grade, which is an F. It's not an ultimate grade. You don't want to. You want to have that in the ultimate grade, but. So if you look at it, it's the same idea as the net pay. The only difference is you will ask for 4 inputs.
Can you scroll down so you can see the last part of it?
Yeah. And I will post this on Blackboard. So I mean, I know it's good to write things down, but don't worry about for those that did not write things down. I will post this on Blackboard. In all these documents here. I'm still recording, right? Yeah. So I'm just going to reuse the app earlier. File, save, project as. I'm gonna call this one grade app. Okay. I'm actually gonna make sure that really got saved to the right place too. Hold on, let me just double check. It's saving correctly. And I'm not. I'm gonna create a folder later. That's fine. Right. So. So what are our inputs? And we're gonna enter whole numbers. So I'm just gonna reuse this. Input, right? So we're gonna say input test midterm final, or I'm gonna call it project, and assignment. We're not gonna worry about the weighted average for grading. We're just going to use those numbers, the decimals, so we don't need this. And the next thing we're going to have is for the output, we're going to have float final. Okay. And then what else?
Carrot letter grade.
Will character work with char work?
It has to be a letter grade at the end, right? But I mean, convert it, like you can have it look at one variable and output the other. You can have it look at, like, final, and use an if statement to change.
Yeah, that's right. But is it a character or is it a string for the?
I mean, it's only A, B, C, D, so it's going to be a character.
Yeah,
You're gonna
yeah.
use a string for it.
Yeah,
You
so
put a
we're-
string if you want, but it's going to be one.
Yeah, we'll just use char then. Yeah, char letter. Okay, that's a good observation right there. All right, so the next step is enter your enter test average. I call this one test. enter midterm grade or midterm exam. Midterm, I'm going to copy this. Next one is project grade. And enter golly. All right, so that's going to be our input. So what's the next step? What are we going to calculate? We're going to be calculating.
Final grade.
Very good. Calculate. And there's really just one that we're going to come up with. We don't need to. What did I call it? Final, right? Yeah. So it will be test times 0.3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Plus midterm times 0.2 plus proj times 0.4 plus assignment times 0.1. And you can put parentheses. You can group them like parentheses for the assignment, for the project times. You can put parentheses so that it's clear, but you don't need to. It's not required. So now we have our final grade. So how do we come up with the letter grade?
We got the if, right?
So what is our first condition?
It's, 91 to 100.
Ah, right. So if final
What is it greater than or equal to 91?
What's the input?
Thank you. All right, so let's run it first and make sure that whatever we did made sense. So compile this, letter A.
Oh wait, if it's a character, do you use the regular quotations or single quotations?
So like it has to be single.
Uh,
It's talking about that line.
uh,
I thought a character is just,
I might be thinking,
but you may have a point.
I might be thinking of Java, but I might be wrong.
I thought that's a character, but hold on, let me.
Do you want to change it to string then?
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
There you go.
Is that correct?
Yes.
An 87?
87 is a B.
Yeah, but is the calculation to 87 is correct?
Oh.
Yeah, let's do. 30% up 100 is 30 plus 18 plus 32. 30 plus 18
48 plus 32 is
is 80 plus 7, 87. Yeah. So that's correct. So any questions?
No?
Yeah, and this is how I program. I collect all my inputs. I develop the user interface for the input. You develop the code for the processing of the transactions, which I refer to as transactions, and you figure out the outputs. And sometimes you don't need to define variables. Back in the old days of programming, you have to be mindful of how many variables that you're gonna define, because you're very limited to RAM space in your computer. But nowadays, all our computers are very powerful now. That you can have 20 or 30 variables with loops, and it doesn't affect your computer. But it's good practice to somehow make your application more optimized. So any questions about these two applications we created today? Any questions about the class? No? So I will upload these codes that I have. I will upload it so that you guys can play with it, create your own version, a better version. That's the idea. And let me just pause this recording here, or stop the recording.